What's up everyone, Thrall's Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic, and I have another collection update for you. This was literally the pile that I was talking about in the last collection update. I didn't want to do it all as one because that would be a lot. So I got some more random underground stuff. There's also some stuff that I ordered here, and it's pretty much all heavier and help, so I'm going to get right down to it. Misery, Revel in Blasphemy. This is my first exposure to this band. Apparently it is a old school Australian death metal band. They've been around since the 90s. This album came out in 1997. It was their second album, and it's pretty straightforward death metal, kind of a Floridian. Production is kind of hit or miss with me. The drums sound terrible on a good chunk of this, and I don't know if this was recorded in different sessions because the drums sounded better on certain songs, but for the most part they are very clicky. They almost sound electronic on here, but there is a drummer listed on here, so I assume it was an actual drummer. It's just the mix of it. Didn't start off particularly well. It was just kind of run-of-the-mill death metal, but towards the end they kind of get a little bit more dynamic in terms of their style. Not only incorporating, like, you know, more thrashy death metal, like that very Floridian style, but they also incorporate some more like sludgy atmospheric stuff, namely very Morbid Angel-esque. In fact, there's a song called Morbid Dreams which sounds a lot like Morbid Angel. That may have been on purpose. Towards the back half were definitely my favorite songs. I thought they were just a little bit more standouts. They actually tried some different stuff, and they kind of broke out of the more standard stuff they were doing before, which was very much akin to like Malevolent Creation, which is awesome, but after a while it kind of got repetitive. But I definitely want to pick up more by these guys, especially when I hear some of their earlier stuff, because I heard some people rave about them. This may not have been like the best place to start, which seems to be kind of a theme of picking up albums that were not necessarily the greatest leaping off point, but I do want to check out more by them because I did like a good chunk of this. So definitely check it out. Mutilation, Rites, Chasm. This one is their most recent album, came out in 2018. I actually have the one before it, which I believe is called Arbinger, and I might like this one a little bit more. These guys are a black metal band from Brooklyn, New York, but I have to say on this one it's almost more of a shift to blackened death metal. The guitar tone on here is exceptionally chunky. It definitely screams more death metal than black metal, but it has all the black metal atmosphere. The vocals kind of are in both camps. You get really good high, shrill, like grim, cold screams, but you also get super low, cavernous roars. This reminds me a lot of a band like Mammoth Grinder, or even like Incantation or Imprecation, which are black and death metal. It's kind of close to that, except there's like sort of a raw, sort of punky energy. You still get a lot of D beats on here. The songs are a little bit longer on here too, and man, do they pack a punch. They keep the intensity. There's all sorts of great atmosphere on here. I definitely plan on jamming this one a lot. I need to go back and probably jam the one before it because I probably forgot how good that one was, but this is absolutely amazing. If I had listened to it in 2018, who knows, might have ended up my year-end list because I dug pretty much every second of this. So if you've never jammed this or any Mutilation Rites, definitely check this out. And yeah, start here. This is a good place to start. Check it out. Reincarnation, Eternal Hymns. Now this is a brutal death metal band from Spain. They were around from 1993 to 1999, and then they broke up and then reformed in 2004. And this is their second EP. They have 2 other full lengths, and this is pretty much straightforward brutal death. Lots of like old school brutal death too, like a lot of Suffocation Worship, Broken Hope, throwing Baphomet in there too, Gorgasm. Riffs are pretty solid, drum work's pretty nasty. I really like the production on here too. The vocals I don't like at all. They are like the worst parts of brutal death. It is all this really terrible brutal death pig growl, and it sounds like he's inhaling all the words rather than exhaling them, and it's just really off-putting, and it's on every track. The cadences aren't particularly interesting, and that's what really killed this for me. If this had a different vocalist, one that had a little bit more of like a straight up death metal roar, like both highs and lows, versus this obnoxious vocal performance on here, I probably would have gotten into this more because the band is definitely awesome. It sucks because I like the music, and again, it kind of sucks because generally vocals can take me right out of a band if they're bad, and I guess it's an acquired taste. If you guys love this guy's vocal style, if you've heard this before, That's awesome. It's definitely not my style, and it really took me out, but I like this band's music, and I'm still going to actually like jam some of their earlier stuff just to see if this was more of an isolated performance. I have a feeling it's probably not, but I still strongly recommend checking it out. Don't just take my word for it. You may actually really dig this. Check it out. Scythe lore, Through the Mausoleums of Man. This came out in 2019 on Iron Bonehead Records. This is their only release, debut EP. German death metal band with a lot of love for Swedish death metal. Yet another one of those, except these guys are more about like murky atmosphere sort of mixed in there. It's not just straight up bloodbath and dismember worship that is part of it, but there is a lot of atmosphere in here, and it's kind of a blackened atmosphere. It's very oppressive, dark, layered. There are giant death doom moments on here that I absolutely loved. It's pretty much death metal with black metal production values. I would definitely compare this a lot to Valenfire, which was Gregor McIntosh's side project that he pretty much just went with like a crust death metal sort of blend, and well, I had a death doom in there too, of course, because Paradise Lost. It's very similar to that. It has that same sort of oppressive atmosphere. The vocals are very reverb drenched. It is a nasty listen, and I just picked this up on a whim just because the cover was pretty cool, and I saw it was on Iron Bonehead. Well, I knew I had a pretty good chance of it being decent. Strongly recommend this one if you're looking for something that is absolutely pummeling and has that just flat out creepy atmosphere that you love about black metal in a death metal band. Definitely check this out. Solid stuff. All right, we got a pair from Voivod. We have Negatron and Infini. Now, these are vastly different albums, and Voivod's a vastly different band from a lot of bands. But these are very polar opposites of one another. I've been working on getting all of Voivod's albums finally. I think I'm only missing a couple more, which should be on the way from Amazon because I went a little spend crazy. It's for a good cause, whatever. But this one, Negatron, this is their first one they did without Snake. He had left the band in 1994. This came out in 95 on Hypnotic Records, and if you had played this for me, I would not have thought it was Voivod. Eric Forrest is the guy doing bass and vocals on here, which he does a really good job, except this doesn't feel like a Voivod album. This feels more akin to industrial metal, in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, like, KMFDM, Ministry, stuff like that. The drums, though I know it's Away still on drums, sound very industrial. They sound kind of robotic. And this is definitely heavier. This is a little bit more of a groove approach. It's, I don't know, kind of close to their older stuff, but I think there is a heft to the guitar tone that is more akin to like a band like Fear Factory. It's definitely chuggier. The dissonance is still there. That was definitely what Piggy was known for, and he knew how to craft that like no one else. But this is an interesting album. It just doesn't feel like a Voivod album. I did order the follow-up to this one, Phobos, which look for that in a future collection update. But this is just an odd album, but I like it. It's really good. I don't know if it didn't say Voivod on it, it was a completely different band, I'd probably like it a little bit more, but just because it says Voivod on it, it just feels off. But again, still good. Now, Infini is the last album that featured the works from Piggy on guitars. He had died in 2004, sadly, of colon cancer, but during that time that he was sick and receiving treatment, the dude just wrote and wrote and wrote, and he left these guys with at least 2 albums worth of materials, because I have Couture's that came out before this. Now, this one has more of a leftover feel, like these were leftover songs, and they're kind of all over the map. You got songs that are very much their thrashy style, then you have songs that are kind of flat-out rock songs, and this is the last one to feature Jason Newsted on bass, or what they call him, Jasonic on this, whatever. But it's an interesting journey of an album. It's kind of all over the place. It kind of really taps into probably all of their influences, and it's still unmistakably Voivod. Snake was back on this one. He had returned in 2002, I believe, at that point. Pretty solid songs in here. I gotta say, I love the song Volcano, the last track. It's probably one of the heavier tracks in here, but it's definitely the most Voivodish track. But then again, all these songs are Voivodish. It's just hard to describe this band. They are unique and strange, and I love them. But this is an interesting album. It does kind of feel like leftovers, but they're pretty solid leftovers. And again, Piggy worked hard and wrote a lot of really cool stuff, and, you know, this was cool that he actually had enough here for another album. Either way, I strongly recommend both. I strongly recommend like 90% of Voivod's back catalog if you haven't ever jammed Voivod. Just jam Voivod, they're awesome. But yeah, definitely check these out. Aepoch The Scryer. This is their debut EP, self-released, and I got this in the Metalhead box, and this is progressive death metal, progressive melodic death metal, technical melodic death metal. It's kind of all those. You know, it's kind of odd because, like, I feel like this sort of kind of blends that boundary between tech death and progressive death because it has elements of both. There are songs that are definitely more tech laden, but you have like stuff that is very much in the realm of prog in terms of like neoclassical playing. The song structure is interesting. Shrapnel Baptized features some absolutely killer fretless bass work. Great melodic hooks on here, but there's a lot of thrashy energy. The lead work on here is absolutely sick. When I got this, people were commenting on the video about how good this was, and I'm glad that I got this because this is absolutely awesome. I'm definitely going to check out more of their stuff. It's really just all over the place and heavy but fierce sense of melody, and I can't argue with that sort of formula because, I mean, every song on here was absolutely kick-ass. I even like the acoustic intro. It was well done too. This whole thing is a really awesome album here, or EP rather. Definitely check this out if you're looking for just prog, tech, melodic death. It's got death in it. It doesn't matter. It's awesome. Just check it out. It's really good. Alright, another one from the Metalhead box. This is the split between Cadaveric, Spasm, and Clit Eastwood. Not Clint. Clit. This is pretty much a grind split between two grind bands. Now, the Cadaveric Spasm half is interesting. It's grind. It's also kind of noise and maybe jazz fusion. It's kind of ridiculous. Like, it's all over the place in terms of its style. Like, you'll get like big death metal hooks, and all of a sudden you'll get like a Mr. Bungle-ish sort of break. I'm not talking about Kurt Bungle. Kurt Bungle is another animal. Old Bungle. It just is kind of weird, and you get these short condensed songs of just weird stuff that don't make a lot of sense. There's really weird keyboards on it. But, I mean, it's fun. It's entertaining, and the song titles are interesting, which that's kind of a thing on all this. The opening track is called Thanks for the Gasoline, and track 3 is called King Fuck. All right, royalty. Now, the Clit Eastwood side, first off, none of the songs are over a minute. They are all quick, nasty, power violence, crust, grind songs, and I really dug them. The front woman on here is particularly vicious. She shrieks, barks, and she even sings on here, which cleans and grindcore / power violence is kind of unheard of, I guess, but not here. And once again, we have a lot of good song titles. I Was Married to Gay Hitler. I brought that one up in the unboxing. Abortion Trimester 666, Monster Vag. It's all about fun. And I ended up really liking Clit Eastwood. I would definitely get a full length by them, which I'm sure their full length would be like 26 songs in 15 minutes. But who cares as long as it's really good. Check this out though, it's a fun split. Check out both bands. I need to check out more by both of them actually, just to get more knowledge about them. But yeah, it's fun. It's just a fun, ridiculous listen. Luna and Sanguinem, Global Bloodbath. This is a self-released EP that came out this year, and this is a death metal band / death thrash band from Illinois, might be Chicago area. Very straightforward death metal. 3 different people doing vocals on here, but it's kind of hard to tell other than the one that does the lower growls. This is an interesting sort of straightforward listen, and when I looked it up, I realized that a couple of the members here were in Numbskull, which is a fiercely underrated thrash metal band from the 80s / 90s. They did a heavier, more abrasive style, much like Possessed or, you know, Slayer. Like, it was just a little bit more on the side of like what would become death metal. This is definitely death metal. In fact, it's much more groove laden, you know, very jungle rot-like feels. It has like old school meat potatoes. Let's just beat you down with riffs. The vocals that carry most of this are more of that mid-register scream, and I have to say after a while they kind of got dull. I actually prefer when the low growls came in to at least break it up a bit. And songwriting-wise, the songs are good, but they don't really stand out. It's just kind of blends in with a lot of death metal that I listen to. And the packaging is kind of odd on here. But I mean, this is self-released, and, you know, way to go to get that out there. But overall, man, I didn't think this was bad. I thought that was just pretty good. It's just kind of blends in with everything else. I would like to hear more of the low growls in here, because I think the death metal side really came out more when they had the lower growls. But overall, pretty decent release. This was the other one I got in the Metalhead box, or one of the 3 I got in there. And yeah, I would recommend checking it out if you're looking for some just old school death metal. Fuming Mouth, The Grand Descent. This came out last year on Triple B Records, and I believe they are currently signed to Nuclear Blast. They have an EP that's out on vinyl and download, so no CD for me yet. But this is their debut, and it is absolutely awesome. The entire time I was listening to this, before I actually went through the liner notes, was, man, this has that Swedish death metal sound, but that sort of converged crunch in terms of the production. And lo and behold, it's Kurt Malo doing all the production here. This is nasty death metal meets hardcore and crust. Like, it's very much the vein of bands like Terminal Nation and Gatecreeper. It has that sort of feeling to it. Loads of big groovy breakdowns that just scream hardcore, and then you get D-beat sections that scream all things dismember. Even have some creepy, droning, clean vocals on here, and all of it's very effective. There's feedback, crunch. It is just a hostile sounding album, and I ended up loving pretty much every track on here. Pretty much if you love bands like Black Breath, which you should love bands like Black Breath, that band is absolutely awesome, you would definitely dig this. I want more by this band for damn sure. Hopefully they put out that EP on CD, because I'm buying it the second it comes out, because I liked what I heard there too. But if you haven't heard this, I strongly recommend it. It is absolutely scathing. And if you're looking for that in your death metal / hardcore / crust, whatever the hell this is, check it out. It's awesome. Autokrator, The Obedience to Authority. This is this French band's second album. They are a Black and Death / drone band, I guess. I believe they're more of a black and death metal band now, at least with the release that came after this. This is maybe sort of a transitional one, and man, this is so damn muddy it is hard to make out anything. The guitars are fiercely down-tuned and very, very, like, super distorted, like almost sort of like a HM2 sound, like Swedish death metal, except low. And then the bass is just pure mud on here. Everything is drenched in reverb. So it's hard for me to actually talk about songs, because it's all essentially droning atmosphere when it comes down to all the playing. Like, they didn't just do it with all synths and ambience. It's all with the band, and then you bring in the vocals, which are just drenched in reverb too. It's pretty much just overkill when it comes down to reverb and atmosphere in here, because they kind of lost me when it came down to finding like discernible hooks in this. It just became this sort of muddy mess of dissonance and atmosphere, which if you're into that, that's awesome, but I need a little bit more than that. I do want to check out more by this band, just to hear at least what they're doing now, because at least their last album seemed to be reviewed a little bit more favorably. This one, not so much, and I mean, I can kind of see why with the production, because, like I said, you can't make out much. It's just this wall of dissonance. So it might be just a mixed thing, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. I've jammed this on different speakers, too, just to see if, you know, I could hear different things on different speakers, and no, it's mud. But if that dissonant atmosphere sort of thing is something you're really into, I would strongly recommend checking this out, because you might find something you liked in here that I didn't. So check it out. Cardiac Arrest, The Day That Death Prevailed. This came out in 2020. What a wonderful time for an album title like that to come out. This is an old school death metal band that I am now just hearing about. They're from Chicago. They're very punky. They definitely remind me a lot of Jungle Rot, but with sort of the Death Doom sound you'd hear in Cyanide. Actually, there is a bridge in one of these songs that reminded me almost of Trouble. So we're just going all over Chicago here as far as their kick-ass metal offerings. I love the riffs on here. They are murky, but they are catchy as hell. The production's really great for that too. The vocals are awesome too. I think they're very dramatic, and I kind of like the hardcore shouts. They kind of sound a little bit anguished, but you kind of pair that up with the deeper roars. And of course, horror samples. There are loads and loads of horror samples of things dripping and being slashed and screams and all that fun stuff. Really solid release, and I definitely need to get more by Cardiac Arrest because this is absolutely awesome. I need to check out their earlier stuff and whatever other stuff. I think they've been around since like the early 90s, so there should be plenty. Either way, definitely check this one out. It is an absolute banger, and it's just pure fun to listen to. Nightbringer, Temple of Rot split. This is Rex X Ordine Throni split. I was not going to be able to remember all that, so I definitely had to look at the notes. This came out in 2005 on Full Moon Productions, and I got it mainly because I know Nightbringer. Nightbringer is an awesome black metal band from, I believe, Denver, Colorado. And their frontman also fronts Achilles, which Jam and Jen and I just reviewed, and that is a haunting, disturbing, awesome album, and that one should be on its way soon, hopefully. Nightbringer is more straightforward black metal, definitely in the vein of bands like Emperor, especially Emperor. Actually, I would even say there's some dissection-like moments because there's almost some moments that kind of border on death metal, melodic death metal in there too. The atmosphere is amazing. Dude's vocals are just creepy and disturbing, and I absolutely love it. But these songs are loaded with, you know, all that grim atmosphere, but there's loads and loads of melodic hooks on it. I enjoyed every song on their side of this. They're longer, but it's all brilliant songwriting, which, I mean, from everything I've heard, Nightbringer, that's pretty much all they do. They really are an amazing black metal band from the US. In fact, I'd say one of my current favorites. Now, the Temple of Knot side. It's just droning ambient noise, and that's pretty much it. There's some vocal passages. It's more or less like groaning in a sewer, and I didn't really get into it. And those songs are long. They're both over 10 minutes long, and my patience for that sort of thing really wore thin. But the Nightbringer side of this is absolutely awesome. That's the side this is worth it for. I think I picked this up for like $5, so really it wasn't as though I lost too much listening to those droning ambient songs because I got those killer Nightbringer songs. So yeah, if you're looking for some sweet black metal and some other stuff that you may or may not get into, that's up to you. Definitely check out this split. It's kick-ass. The Nightbringer side is kick-ass. Either way, check it out. Sepulchural Temple, self-titled. This is their lone EP that came out in 2013 on Invictus Records, and this is an international band that features members from the UK, Finland, and Cyprus, and they were all pretty much from mostly black metal bands, but they wanted to do a death metal project, and this definitely sounds like black metal guys doing a death metal project. Loads of atmosphere, loads of anguished screams. In fact, I want to say it sounds like there's a woman screaming on this, but that could be a dude, or that could be the guitars, because the guitars, when it comes down to lead melodies, sound really creepy and somber and almost kind of synthy. It's very strange. They might be synths, I don't know. I think it's guitars, though, just judging by the tone. But when it comes down to the bulk of the music, this is death metal that borders on death doom. It's oppressive. It's ugly. The production is a little bit muddy. And there are only 2 songs in here, but there are 4 tracks. There's an interlude between the 2 tracks and then one outro track, and they're both pretty much the same thing. They could have been combined together to form one sort of weird intro track, or taken off there altogether and had another track on there. I'm not big on intros. But the 2 songs here are really solid, and this is it. They're pretty much broken up now. So I don't know if they'll ever get back together, but I wouldn't mind hearing it. But I imagine with being an international band with members from a multitude of different bands, this may have just been a one-off, but it was a pretty fun one-off. And if you're looking for some creepy, atmospheric death metal / death doom, check this out. It was a solid listen. Serpens Luminis, Bright Euphoria. This is this band's debut album, came out in 2019. This is a Swiss blackened death metal band that love to be dramatic and loads of that dissonant atmosphere that I love so much. But riffs, melodic hooks, these guys know how to incorporate all that atmosphere and create really catchy moments in here. The vocals on here are just over the top. There's a lot of like anguish shouting, and it's very dramatic. It kind of reminds me of like Sulphur Aeon in terms of the more dramatic parts where he's shouting out, you know, hymns to Cthulhu or whatever he likes to talk about. The drum work on here is absolutely killer too. Now this is technically a full length, at least that's what it said on Encyclopedia Metalum, but honestly, it's more of an EP. It's only 3 tracks, but it is 27 minutes long, so there's definitely a lot of content in here. If you're into bands like Magua or Garia, you definitely dig this. It has all that atmosphere, but there are tons of killer riffs on here. Great production too. They really know how to capture the sound. I strongly recommend this. This was a great little random find because I just picked this up based on the killer album cover. Sometimes it pays off. Either way, check it out. It was a fun listen. Unspoken, Requiem, Aeturnam, Dio. This came out in 2013. This is this band's second album. They are a death metal band from Norway. And this is another band that would say definitely employs blackened production to straight up death metal. Except this is Swedish death metal. It's kind of a hybrid between the Stockholm sound and the Gothenburg sound. There are definitely touches of melodic death on here throughout, but you give a lot of blackened atmosphere. This is also comprised of members of Unconsecrated and Urkraft, which those guys both do incredible stuff as well. But this is a really cool listen in terms of the fact that it's fiercely chuggy. It's very much in the camp of death metal, but the ambience that's in there and the guitar work, a lot of it screams black metal too. The only thing I would knock it on is I think the drums seem to come up in the mix a little bit because sometimes you really can't hear them all that well. Now this band is on hold currently. I don't know why. They may be members in other bands and such, but I'm looking forward to hearing more from these guys because I like their style. It's a good balance of riffs and atmosphere, and there's a lot of dissection worship on here too, which I love dissection. So yeah, definitely check this out. It was a solid listen. And finally, we have Ossuarium, Calcified Trophies of Violence. This is the Blood Harvest reissue of their original 3-track demo, and these guys were always good, apparently. This is an awesome sounding demo. Now, I don't know if Blood Harvest took the time to remaster it or anything like that, but it sounds absolutely awesome. It sounds not too far removed from their debut album, Living Tomb, which was the first album we ever reviewed as like an official album review on this channel. So this band has a special place in my heart. And even if it wasn't the first band we ever reviewed on here, this band is absolutely incredible. Portland, Oregon, death metal, death doom. It's kind of a hybrid. It's very cavernous, very like incantation worship, but there's a lot of that autopsy D-beat fun in here. All 3 tracks absolutely whoop ass on here. Really not much to say. It's a short listen, but it is an awesome listen. And if you love just big sludgy riffs and death metal, well, yeah, get it. It's absolutely awesome. You can get their debut album too. It's amazing. But yeah, killer find. Super glad I have this, and I can't wait for them to put out more music because Ossuarium rules. So definitely check this out. All right, well, that'll do it for this collection update. And pretty sure there's a lot of stuff arriving from Amazon because people got me Amazon gift cards and I did some shopping. So pretty much went around and looked for stuff that I missed this year in terms of not picking up or we just didn't review. So there should be some stuff from 2020 that we didn't cover in this next one, and just other random stuff that I picked up. So yeah, plenty more to come. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We will catch you later.